This is my 2021 GMC LM2 3-liter diesel truck. It's my daily driver and the tow vehicle for the 5,000-pound travel trailer in the background. I'm a 73, soon to be 74-year-old guy who does most, if not all, of his own vehicle service. In this video, I'll be discussing two PPE transmission cooling devices that I have installed. Some time ago, I saw on YouTube a video that showed at least one person who had had the transmission thermostat on his GM 10-speed fail. After that, his transmission overheated and destroyed itself. A quick and easy search led me to the DemonWorks YouTube site and his video on installing the PPE thermostat bypass. Picture of it is shown here. I grew up the son of a mechanic, so I've heard of all kinds of automobile failures, but I don't recall ever hearing of a transmission failing from being too cool. Operating on the information provided by DemonWorks, I decided to order the transmission thermostat bypass and install it. At the time, I also ordered a Banks iDash so that I could monitor several of the vehicle parameters, especially while towing. Here's a picture of my iDash installed. What I'm monitoring every day and all the time is, first off, the gear that I'm in. Secondly, the turbo boost, transmission temperature, engine coolant temperature, engine oil temperature, the diesel emission fluid tank percentage, the diesel particulate filter percentage, and way down there at the bottom right is that tells me if I'm in regeneration or not. It's right now off. When it starts a regeneration, it will change obviously to on. While in Arizona, I have found that DemonWorks had a video on replacing the original equipment transmission cooler with one from PPE. It looked to be a job that I could do, so just before starting back home, I ordered the PPE cooler. I also ordered 2 line connectors from Rock Auto. The link to the DemonWorks video and to all the parts that I bought will be in the description of this video. This was not going to be my first experience with attaching a GM transmission and its lines. I'd previously owned a 2015 Sierra. Those have the transmission cooler built into the air conditioner condenser. The condenser leaked, so I had to replace it. At the same time, of course, I had to replace the transmission cooler. And those connectors on it are exactly the same as these. I bought the line connectors mostly because of the possibility of the little springs inside them, clips, going walkabout when I'm snapping it off. Thankfully, I didn't lose any, but the $8.24 I'd spent on new connectors seemed to be cheap insurance against the mess up that could happen. And it happening would disable my truck until I could order in a replacement. Here's a side-by-side picture of the original equipment cooler and the one from PPE. PPE says that theirs has 200% of the cooling capacity of the original. And just looking it over, I believe it. It is both thicker and taller. The line connector shown here screws into the cooler on both sides. There are no differences between the in and outside. It has a spring clip that grips the cooler lines in 3 places by protruding through the connector in those 3 slots. There's also a keeper ring that stays with the line on the vehicle that clips up over this and keeps those 3 areas from backing out under pressure. You'll see that keeper ring later in the video. Here's one of the spring clips after it had been removed from my truck. This plastic panel behind the grill and in front of the radiator has to come off so that you can get to everything you're going to need to work on. Yes, it's dirty, and yes, I did clean it while I had it off. Holding it on are 12 push pins. To get these off, they have a center ring that you lift up, or looks like a button. Pull that up, and it allows the legs of the thing to come together, and they pop out easily. You probably should have a small screwdriver to help get that center button up, and then after that it's real easy. I think there's 12 of them holding that big plastic panel on. If you try, you'll find that the big plastic panel won't come off because of the hood release latch. You need to take it off. It has 2 screws that are T4s. Once you remove that, it'll come right off. The next thing you'll need to do is remove 2 support bars running from the front to the back, angled toward the middle. For those, you'll need a 13 millimeter wrench or socket. After that, you'll need to remove the hood latch itself. It's held on with 2 13 millimeter bolts. On this, before you remove it, you need to mark it so you can get it back in the exact same place. Once you get the 2 bolts loose, there's a little plastic keeper that holds the line in place. You need to take the line loose from that so that you can swing the line and the latch and everything back out of your way. The next step is to take the 15 millimeter bolts out of these 2 supports. You only need to do the top. After that, you can bend them back out of the way. You'll probably find that these are really tight. Mine were on from the factory with red Loctite. I put them back the same way. Now that we have all that out of the way, we're ready to start disconnecting the cooler lines. Shown here is the passenger side line, and that black ring is the keeper that prevents the line connector spring from letting the line come out under pressure. That little black ring can be popped right off and down with a flat blade screwdriver. Do take note of the shape of that line as it enters and goes down from the cooler. It's in an L shape. That L is going to become really important in just a few minutes. Here is a tool that I used to get those little spring clips off. Here also is the tool that I used to get those spring clips off. It's just a little hook from a very cheap, I think, Harbor Freight purchase. I think it costs like $3 or $4 at the most. On the driver's side, there is no fastener. Notice that tab, it just fits into a slot. Also notice that on the driver's side, the line is going to come in from the side. On the passenger side, you'll see a similar tab, and then below that is where the passenger side fluid line connects. Notice on this side, there's a hole in that tab. That's where that 10 millimeter hold down bolt goes through, and that's how it holds the whole thing up there. Those 2 tabs and that one hole with that one bolt. Here's the passenger side with the bolt installed. Notice that big block below the bolt. That will come in really handy when we start putting the lines back on. Demon Works on his video said he had an awful time getting the driver's side line loose. I found a way to make it very easy. You'll notice that I put a dowel down through the bodywork and on the inside of an L shape on the line. I put that dowel down on the inside of that L and gave it a sharp rap with a hammer in the direction of the pull that I need to get that to get the line loose, and it popped right out. No problem at all. The passenger side tube also has an L in it. Comes in handy. I put my dowel on that L and gave it a sharp rap down on the top of the dowel with a hammer, and it popped right out. Obviously here I pushed down with the hammer. Over on the other side, it was a sideways blow. For putting the driver's side back together, that L shape down in the bodywork worked out to be very handy there also. What I did was I held the new cooler in place, or in my left hand, and worked that L shape through the bodywork and into the uh, tube connector that I had installed. And then I carefully put it in the slot, the tab in the slot, and I put the bolt in over on the passenger side so that everything was held good and securely. And then using that same dowel, but this time on the outside of that L, I gave it another smack in the direction that it needed to go, and it seated. All I needed to do then was slide that black keeper ring back up over the spring, and I was done with that side. I did have some trouble getting the passenger side lined up and installed. In fact, I wound up having to get my wife to help me a bit. What I found was that I couldn't get any pressure to snap that line upward into its receptacle. What I wound up doing was removing the bolt. I got a large pry bar with about a 3/4 inch shank on it. With the bolt removed, I pivoted the new cooler out a bit and let it drop down to where that elbow in the line was resting on the shank of my pry bar. Now I made sure the pry bar was the last thing, or the bottom thing, under the body work, because there's another hose or two over there that come through into that area where the tube attaches. I made sure my pry bar was down against the metal and there was nothing in between that where it might get compressed or damaged. Got my wife to hold the pry bar, and I got everything lined up, and then I put my dowel on that large block that the connector screws into, gave it a pop with the hammer, the dowel with the hammer, and it seated, and I was done. After reinstalling everything up top, the only thing left to do was to check transmission fluid. For that, my truck being a four-wheel drive helped, because I put 4 ramps under all 4 wheels, and using four-wheel drive pulled up on them, so I was good and level. I had in my toolbox a 8 millimeter Allen wrench that was good hard steel, left over from a motorcycle toolkit that I owned back in the 1970s. And you have to have a cheater. I found a useful item for that. It was a handle off a little trolley jack that I've had for 20 years or more. Um, that plug at the back left side of the transmission is extremely tight. Even using the cheater, it was difficult to get off, and when it broke loose, it broke loose with a loud snap. I was able to work it loose using the cheater for a while, and then use just the Allen wrench, and finally finished up with just my fingers to get it out. Surprisingly, I found that I didn't need to add any more fluid. The recommendation on that is that it's full when the transmission fluid is warm, and it just trickles out the hole. I had warmed the transmission fluid once I got it up on the ramps by keeping my foot on the brake and putting it in drive and reverse, and working my way through the gears with the engine at high idle. Got the temperature up really good. It checked full, and I was done. So I tightened that plug back up real good. Um, since doing all of this, both parts, uh, I put about 1,500 miles on the truck, both in town and out on the highway. My transmission temperatures generally range in the 130 to 150 degree range. One day when I was caught in traffic, it got up to 154 degrees, and that's the highest I've seen since I did these installations. So I'm happy with it. I hope you have good luck with yours, and do be sure and visit Demon Works. I think you'll find he's a little more professional with his video, and between the two of them, this one and over there, I think you'll have good success. Thanks again for watching. This is my first video, so feels free to subscribe. I'm going to have another short one before long on changing the transfer case fluid. And that's it. Thank you, folks. Bye.